to Lilydale Radio, featuring topics about spiritualism, mediumship, healing, spirituality, and the Lilydale Assembly, the world's largest center for the religion, philosophy, and science of spiritualism. This is Lilydale Radio.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Wake Up to Spirit with you every Thursday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern here on Lilydale Blog Talk Radio. And I have, of course, my name is Celeste Elliott and I am your host. And with me today, I have a special co-host and neighbor and friend, Willa White. Willa, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. We always have fun when we hang out, on air or otherwise, so life is good. So today, I have talked Willa into talking about mediumship, because that is a subject that we both know well. So Willa, how long have you been a medium? And how long have you been a registered medium in Lilydale?
So I saw spirit when I was just a little child, and I had verifiable contact with spirit and was able to help a grieving mother at the time of one of my best friends. So that, it started with all of that, and my parents very much supported the process because they understood about mediumship, and really wonderful growing up in that environment and with their support and with their knowledge. And I've been registered as a Lilydale medium since 2003. So I just completed my 18th summer as a registered medium and moving on forward there.
So you are 10 years ahead of me.
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah. So, and then before you, because you're the youngest person to register ever, right?
I don't know if ever, but quite possibly.
Yeah. Because you're still young, so.
Oh, thank you.
And then before you was Stephanie Turacek, who of course is now in spirit.
Yeah, she just passed this summer, and what a delightful soul.
Yeah. So kind of a fun club to be. We did a whole show last year on being young and doing mediumship and what that was like. And so
yes, you came on my show and we did Young Medium, so that's the title if anybody wants to look it up.
Exactly. So there's always reruns, which is a wonderful thing. And actually, before I get going too far in, because of course, we always like to mention what's going on in Lilydale. That's another thing that kind of connects us here. We have online classes going through the fall, and so November and December. We just had one last weekend that was fabulous. Coming up this week, we have on Saturday, Spiritual Healing for a New Era, and that's with Joanne Copley-Nigro, and she is teaching healers spiritual healers how to do the work at a distance, and especially for sort of online situations, which is coming up an awful lot now, of course. Then we also have Wellness for the Holidays, which is Cassandra Butler and Patricia Bell. And they are 1 to 4 on Sunday. And that's like holistic wellness. The following Saturday, we have a class on the 21st and the 22nd. So go to lilydaleassembly.org and check those out because there's lots of great things, including concerts next month, December. It's hard for me to think that December is that close, but it is. So if you're anything like me, I like to go to concerts all through December. And you know, this way you can partake in live music and energy without leaving your couch. So you can enjoy listening to great stuff in your sweatpants, and life is good. So and okay, so we do have some people that are chiming in on Facebook, which is awesome. If you guys have questions, or if you would like to call in and ask us a question, we are not doing readings, but if you want to ask us a question, you can call at 818-739-8818, and that is the number every week, and I usually have it memorized. For 3 years I've had it memorized, but you know, sometimes I still want to say 800 because, you know. So anyway, so I am going to also put that in the comment section. So not to interrupt our flow anyway. So Willa, 18 years in Lilydale. That is a huge,
as a registered medium.
As a registered medium.
I was a full-time medium before that.
Yeah. Yes. And so, you know, I think it's funny because as mediums kind of adapt to their practice over time, we sort of, there's certain things that we sort of get used to or take for granted a little bit. At least I do. It's like, and then I think back and I go, oh yeah, okay. Like I'll listen to every once in a while tapes from when I was getting a reading for myself as a student. And it kind of reminds me, like, it gets me back into that headspace, like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I genuinely had no experience with this, or I had, you know, questions about that. So you had mentioned that when you were a little one, that you were able to connect with spirit very clearly. But you how do I want to put this? So was your primary gift clairvoyance, or was it just kind of that mishmash of
it was everything, all spirit senses combined.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's something kind of important to bring up too, is that it technically always is. It's just where we put the focus, right? Or what comes through the strongest.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, and you went to development circles is
Yes, I attended development circles while in college. And so my mother was going and I went too. I said, I'm curious. I want to do more with this and fine tune. I didn't think of being a medium. It's not like when you're in high school and you sit down with your guidance counselor and you start to discuss, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? And this
right.
wasn't something that was an option on that list that they give you. And
right.
so, through college, I was attending development circles, workshops, church here in Lilydale, and I was really blessed to sit in circles with Judith Rochester and Patricia Price, and had a whole slew of great teachers that certainly supported me, including my parents. I have to keep bringing that up because they very much have a solid foundation in spirit contact, spiritualism, healing, the whole 9 yards. So it really helped. And so I noticed that I was able to progress very quickly, and you know, it was something that came easily, naturally to me, and that I could help people. And it made me feel so good to be able to do that, and to, you know, have more and more confirmation from people I was giving my messages to and readings to, that this was helping them to overcome grief, move into a sense of peace, really understand their connection more fully with the divine themselves. So that's been the life mission.
Yeah. So being, so having intuitive and mediumistic ability from the time that you were little, and actually kind of regardless, because on the one hand, because that it doesn't totally have bearing on the question that I'm formulating in my head here, but when do parents approach you and say, my little one has intuitive ability, what do I do for them?
Oh, of course. Throughout the years, that's been a standard question from a lot of parents.
Yeah.
And so we talk it through. I tend to discourage children from having readings because, unless they can sit still for a half hour and know their people in spirit really well and can carry on a conversation, there's no point. But a lot of parents are having situations with their children that they are noticing they're having spirit contact, how to work through certain fears, how to work through those things. So we discuss it. And I give them my 2 cents about how that works. And it has to be individually based on that particular child, where they are in their maturity, where they are in their spiritual development, and what kind of support they can have at home. I tend to discourage parents from talking about their children's gifts with willy-nilly with friends and acquaintances and things like that, because I feel something as a sensitive, we tend to need that privacy energetically, to not be bombarded by requests to kind of jump through the hoop of this, do this for me, trained monkey almost, right? And so we want children to be allowed to be children, to understand how they can, use their gifts, but they don't need to be full-fledged. They need to just be enjoying their life and learning about so many other aspects of human life. And so that's why I tend to encourage that to happen when they have moved in more into adulthood, around the age of 18, after they've gotten through hormones and whatnot. I think that's really important for them to kind of have some sort of grounded, centered energy. And Harry Edwards, who was a wonderful medium who's passed now from the United Kingdom, he said that it was really important that a medium be of even mind. If you're going to be a professional medium, you need to be of even mind. And I do feel that people kind of need to get through that arc of things having to do with childhood and adolescence, and move more into that maturity before they enter into it. So that's what I tend to tell parents. Of course, everything's an individual, on an individual basis, but as a rule, I think that that's a healthy one. That's a healthy one. Great.
Yeah, that's I think what you're basically saying is it's not like playing the piano or taking dance. You don't, where you kind of go, hey, little Johnny, come out here and, demonstrate your ability for for your aunts and uncles, or, because mediumship, natural mediumship, can of course be trained and fine-tuned, so you learn to do it on command. You learn to shift your focus to spirit, because that's what we do every day, except on days off, right? So and it's very important not to, we don't want stage parents.
Right. It's really a crucial aspect, because I wouldn't want to put a sensitive person like myself through that sort of situation. I was so sensitive to the point that if people came to the house, I didn't want my parents to tell those folks that they had a daughter. I didn't want to come out, because I needed my solitude from other people's thought forms. The energies, going to school and in what many ways could be very traumatic for a person who's sensitive, because you are bombarded by all kinds of other people's thought forms, what they're going through energetically. So there has to be some protection that is done. And as a person learns how to buffer energy, they're able to handle that more. So I feel like those childhood, adolescent years are learning about how to buffer energy more effectively, so that you can be of even mind and know how you have your healthy boundaries set up.
Yeah.
And sometimes people who in their adulthood, you've noticed this probably yourself, Celeste, that in their adulthood, they've been sensitive a lot of their life, and now they're ready to launch in that. They kind of have to go back into, all right, how do I set healthy boundaries? How do I do all of those things? And I think that, it has to be at that core level of the spiritual unfoldment that occurs within an individual.
Yeah. And this is, so we are getting some comments. So I do want to acknowledge those, but it's perfectly leading right into that. So we had some questions from people about how to best stay sort of spiritually grounded and connected, particularly during these times. Which, is all times are interesting times, but these are particularly it's a very particularly interesting chapter right now, with people being kind of shut up in their homes with COVID and that sort of thing. So, and the comment also says beside meditation. So I guess they're doing their meditation, which is great. That is very, very important. And varying your kinds of meditation can be very important as well. So that's good to mention. But are there other spiritual practices that you are sort of recommending right now?
So those of you who follow my Facebook page and my show, you probably have noticed the things that I seem to be advocating. I recently took people on a forest bathing excursion into the Lady Ellen Winds to visit Inspiration Stump. I think connecting with nature is a really essential point right now.
Yeah.
Outside, fresh air, walk if you can. It's, put your face to the sun and let that infuse you, and just really embrace simple pleasures at this particular time, and really be in that, the power of now. That now moment is so present for us right now, and to be in a space of gratitude. So what grounds me, what centers me is being able to have those connections with nature, having simple pleasures, loving my people, loving my family, loving my friends, focusing on those things. And while I do think sitting meditation is a beautiful experience, by and large, I've noticed that a lot of people, they really need a walking meditation or a working meditation to be able to effectively, slough off the energy buildup that they have. So, dance.
Yes.
Is so wonderful.
Your body
on and move your body and get things out of you that you may, as a sensitive, it's really easy to amplify or magnify the energy that's around us. So, take some happy breaks.
Yes.
Are really important during this particular time. And, the meditation is useful, but I would say that just allow yourself to be inspired throughout the day. Allow the divine download to be what is present in your life, instead of those ego centered thoughts and the panic, the fear, the worry, the anxiety. Those are patterns of reaction. Mm-hmm. And we need to identify what is a healthy pattern of reaction, what is an unhealthy pattern of reaction, and we need to shift our focus. And it does take practice. Nobody said that was easy, but you can move that. You can get so used to it that it is on automatic pilot. So those are the things that really help me. Plus, I love books. So I believe spiritual food needs to be eaten on a huge level right now. Mm-hmm. So, get yourself some good spiritually grounding books that when you open them, you read those sentences and you feel like It's infusing your soul. It's uplifting and inspiring you in those moments. Maybe it's the Bible. Maybe it's another kind of meditation book. But whatever it is, let it be inspiring. Feed yourself those things rather than what the external world is trying to feed you at this time.
Perfect. Yeah.
So that's a long answer.
No, I think it was perfect though, truly. So, I really think I talk about the practice of mindfulness and very purposeful living a lot. And I kind of always go back to that. And I think that's a lot of what you were saying as well. I also, I find showering to be a very powerful tool.
Yeah, water has a way of neutralizing things.
Yeah. And it allows you to, because you're on autopilot anyway, right? But if you're setting the intention that all of that energy goes down the drain with the shampoo,
Sure.
That's a great thing. So
I don't think we need to be like Blanche Dubois in Streetcar Named Desire and stay in the bathtub all day.
No.
But I think just to make a point, I think that we have to be living our lives and focusing on other aspects of things, and we need to do our self-care, but
yes.
allow what's going on in your life to be an expression of embodied prayer.
Yes, exactly right.
Whether it's a shower or whether it's talking to another soul.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so there is a question also, and this is a little off topic, but someone is asking me if the Spiritualist Church celebrates Christmas. And I if it was 3 weeks earlier, I always get the question, does the Spiritualist Church celebrate Halloween? And to that, I always respond, we like candy too. But it's not a religious holiday for us. And there are Christian spiritualist churches that celebrate Christmas as a religious holiday that is celebrating the birth of Jesus, or the birth of the Christ. And then there are others. I think most spiritualist churches celebrate Christmas in some way.
I would think so. And in fact, one of my favorite things to do with the kids around Christmas time is go look at local church has thousands of nativity scenes in it, and they put them up, and it's so beautiful. And for us, it's an affirmation of Christ consciousness.
Yes.
And how we want to bring that light to what we're doing in the world.
Yes.
So we see that Christmas story as being a very important thing to have happened historically, but also energetically.
Yes, exactly.
So that's how, as spiritualists, we tend to do whatever we feel on that spiritual level, the truth within our own hearts. Yeah. But I would say in my particular family, that's something that is important to acknowledge and to be part of on that level.
And on a side note, I have to say, Christmas in my house, I don't know if you've been over to my house, Willa, during Christmas, but there is a tree in every room, except the bathrooms, because I can.
That's right.
Yeah.
You get to choose how you decorate your home.
I'm saying, because it makes me happy.
And you have enough trees to offset any of the Grinches.
That's exactly right. I'm up for all of you who don't feel like it.
There you go. But within our household, we really don't make a big deal about the gifts. The gifts are okay, but that's not the focus for us.
Yeah.
And it's more about the spirit of Christmas and the giving and receiving of the light.
Yes. And you have a couple of little ones too, so
Yes.
that's an extra special time.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So I think we all get to choose how we want to do those things, and you know, for some people, they're more steered toward Buddhism, and that's how they do things, and that's, you know, everybody to each his or her own in that sense. But yes, Halloween's not a big time in our family, I have to say. We really don't do the trick or treating. It's not a thing for us.
We yeah,
And
I am
it's
the
more about
holiday
educating
person.
people that spirit contact is not about spook and boo. Pardon?
I said I'm the holiday person in my
Yes,
family.
Celeste is very much the holiday person.
Yeah.
She makes sure there's candy for those kids.
Darn, darn straight. Uh, yeah, I love Halloween. I love Christmas. I love, decorating, and just kind of anything that is kind of fun and uplifting and, brings a little extra light, at this time of year, especially. And because Will and I don't have as much time in the summer because we're very busy with the Lily Dale season. So, um, so that's in the off season, that gives me a chance to do something kind of extra fun. So people are asking about, fine tuning their abilities and how they get started in mediumship. Willa and I both came up through, circles, development circles, and workshops, and programs, all this sort of thing. So, it is something that as you are listening and developing your relationship with the creator, putting it on that basis, not just about, hey, look what I can do. Because that's that can get some cringy results, I have to say. So purpose is good. Right now, especially, there's a lot of, like I said, Lily Dale always has stuff going on. If you go for readings, that can be a learning experience for you. I was telling Willa before the show, I like to sometimes go back and listen to my reading tapes from the early 2000s, 2005, 2006, 2010, and you're going, oh yeah, that's where I was at that time. So that can be helpful, because it's another way of listening to spirit and kind of tuning in. Right now, and I'm not meaning to, toot my own horn here by any means, so I apologize for the commercial, but I am teaching an online development circle on Friday nights. So you could go to my website and see if that interests you as well. That is sponsored by Church of the Living Spirit, by the way. And there are fabulous, fabulous books out there. Willa, you studied with Judith Rochester. I've had Judith on the show before. I adore her. She has a fabulous book on development that people can check out. And I also quite like Marilyn Autry's book on how to do a home circle. And of course, she's kind of legendary, as far as her, especially with her knowledge of a natural law, which is something we hold quite dear in spiritualism. And also Janet Nahavik of New Jersey has a fabulous book out on development. And so those are some resources that if you are sitting at home, you can check out. And also in Lilydale, Joanne Copley-Nigro and Marianne Steiner on Thursday nights have an online development circle, and it is now all year. So you can check that out as well.
Yeah, a lot of great resources out there. And I've been offering some online classes myself. So people are enjoying those. And I would say when you really love it, you're going to find the right teachers, you're going to be led to the right information for you at that particular time. And we don't want to put the cart before the horse in
Yes.
the development. As much as you become so eager to learn, it's a process that can take time, and you need to be patient with your particular process as you learn symbology with spirit and how things come through you, because mediums they don't receive everything equally, and that's just the truth. And so you have to work with people that you trust and really have an affinity energetically with. So that's why it's difficult in some ways to recommend a particular path, because everybody needs to find that for themselves. The people that I would resonate with, you wouldn't necessarily resonate, but it's quite possible. It's quite possible. So this, Lilydale has a lot of great classes, and you'll find classes elsewhere as well, but they are there for you, as Celeste was talking about.
Yeah, perfect. And your website is
WillaWhite.com. So it's really easy.
perfect. That is easy. Okay. So, yeah. And so I don't know about different, specific circles in people's different areas. So I can't answer that specifically for people, but there's lots of good stuff.
Yeah, there are a lot of spiritualist churches sprinkled throughout the United States and the world. And when you start looking into it, and now that things are a bit more online, it's as if you're next door practically, because you do have a lot of resources open to you now that we didn't have when we were first starting out. We had to go physically to a circle and be present. And there's something to be said for that. And I hope that it returns soon to that kind of situation. Because I think it's really good to be in a person's presence and feel.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and as a sensitive, that is important sometimes, so, yeah, that's very, very good. I wanted to get into some of the other comments here, but also, what do people often ask you as a medium? Do you have anything off the and I'm putting her totally on the spot, guys. So
you and I talked about that a lot in the Young Mediums show that we did, of how people can put you on the spot with things when you're in a reading or out of a reading. But by and large, when you're in a reading, the client wants to know how their person in spirit is doing. Are they okay? Are they all right? And usually that is absolutely the case. I would say, and that's been the case. And they also want to know sometimes, am I going to be okay? What do they think about what I just did with this? What do they think about these aspects of my life, or about so-and-so? And they do give their opinions. If a person in spirit is of that personality nature, they will absolutely give their opinions.
Yes.
The rapport that you have with a person here on the earth plane does not end just because of so-called death.
Yes.
Think about it. When it's your turn to pass, you're going to go check in on your people, and you're going to, depending on how nosy you are, you might go, hey, I don't like what you're doing over there. Or, hey, you know what? This is what I think you should do. And they kind of give their 2 cents, but I encourage the people I read for to remember that these are their opinions, and you ultimately need to be making the decisions in your own life. Your life is not about ask the audience.
Right.
This is you can phone a friend, but you ultimately need to make the decision as to what you feel the right answer in your life is. And that comes, I think what happens is it comes down to developing yourself on a soul level. And I think that's a big takeaway for a lot of clients.
Yeah.
With that. But yes, they're concerned about their people. Are they okay? Were they in pain? How was that particular dying experience? Did they know I was there? Did they know I was not there? Did they, like, all of those things?
Yeah.
Are part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think people are sometimes very interested. I think it goes through phases, like what's kind of popular, not only with the spirit people, but also with us in the living, where I will get in one summer. And I think it's because we get known in the spirit world as sort of like, oh, she's a subject matter expert on, or I like how she talked about X. And then they'll send their living people to us.
Yes. Oh, I get a lot of referrals from people in spirit.
Yeah.
And people will have dreams and my name will be in that dream and they know they need to connect with me. There are all kinds of experiences with spirit having really helped to orchestrate that person's presence with me.
Yeah. I think because personality and memories are two things we get to pack up and take with us. So personality wise, if they're like, yeah, I'm really vibing with Willa, they're going to try to send the living people to you. So
yes. So that's how that absolutely works that way.
Yeah.
And but I do encourage the client that go to who you feel intuitively drawn to.
Yes.
It's an important element of this, because it's great to have referrals and whatnot, but do you really feel that you're want to give trust to this experience? Because that's an important thing. As the client, you have responsibilities too. It's not just, oh, spirit needs to give me this, or the medium needs to give me that, but the person who's receiving the message or having the reading really does have responsibility as well to what energy they're bringing to that circumstance. And they have an important job: validation, confirmation, being part of that conversation, and really setting that sacred intention for that communication to happen.
Yeah, 100%. That very, very, very well put, I have to say. So see, this is why I have her on, because she's awesome. So
thanks, Celeste.
So yes, spirit connection happens to everybody. It's whether you're able to or choosing to recognize it. That was that was me answering a question off of Facebook, by the way. So
I think the thing I should also mention is that spirit contact is a sacred connection and communication. Yes. And so if you are of that intention, that's part of the right practice and right intention to make those things happen. And another aspect of this is many times the message is, I'm visiting, I'm around you, I'm not around 24/7, but I see what's going on in your life. I see the difficulties, I see the joys, I see that you just did this. Or sometimes it's like silly things. You didn't drink your orange juice this morning, or like absolutely silly things that
but it proves the connection.
It's a personal connection. Or you lost your keys today. Oh yes, I did. Like in the things like that are just kind of simple everyday things that just happened on that particular day.
Yes, exactly. Well, and what better way for spirit to come through and for us to know, oh, they are present, they are around, they did see this. They try to bring that up. So
I have a great story to share with you.
Oh, so please.
I had a client, and we were in the process of connecting with her father, and it was the day the Buddhist monks were here, and they go down my street for their closing ceremony. Yes. And then the boom, 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 and I asked, "Oh, do you want to just peek out real quick and just watch them, since they're going right past the house? You have the best view at my house, people." But so she said yes, and the thing was, she was still reeling, because what had just come through before we peeked out for the Buddhist monks. I said, "I see an armadillo. He's showing me an armadillo." And you understand that? And then the Buddhist monks came by, and she told me later, she said, when we were growing up and we would be driving down the road, my dad would joke. He says, "There's an armadillo." That was the running joke whenever they would take road trips. And on their way to Lilydale that morning, they joked that they saw an armadillo on the side of the road. And this was her dad's way of declaring armadillo. And, just really funny, weird things that can come through like that. And it doesn't make any sense to me, nor should it. It's not for me. It's not a message for me. But it can be that kind of silly stuff. Yeah. And I noticed that these cannot necessarily be asked for. Like if the person who is receiving the reading says, "Can he tell me what I saw on the side of the road today?" It somehow involves a different energy. Yeah. Than if they spontaneously give it. There's a different kind of component to the energy that's with us. I think it's a difference between demand and a gentle request. Yeah. So to just allow, the gentle request allows the conversation to unfold as it needs to. A demand says, "And that's what I want right now. And if you don't give it to me, I'll be unhappy somehow." So it can't, that's an element that I try to encourage people not to get into that energy struggle in a reading, because you want things to just kind of unfold, and it's delightful then. It's delightful and it's delicious to be involved in a reading where that sort of information comes through. Yeah.
You know what? I think I'm so glad you brought that up. I'm so glad you did. And I think that has to do also with the expectation of who is going to show up at the reading. The old time spiritualists from, that were in their 80s when I was in my, teens. I remember them always saying, you don't call on your spirits. And it always sounded very foreboding to me. And I was like, so does that mean I shouldn't talk to them? Should I not ask them for, what they think about certain things? And that's not it, because the relationship absolutely continues. But I think what they really meant about that was if you're planning a party, you send out an invitation, not a demand.
Right. You don't have armed guards bring them to your house.
Right. That's not much of a party at that point. So, nobody's going to enjoy themselves that way.
I think it's important to say that sometimes people were like, well, what if they love me, they'll just show up. Right. Now, I found that it's great if a client says, "Hey, you guys, I've got an appointment, show up," and then we allow things to unfold. And there can be more than one spirit that's coming through in a reading frequently. And it starts to become almost like a dinner party. Yes. And there'll be certain people that talk more than others. So sometimes you have to say their name so that they speak up and give you more information. Otherwise, your grandma's going to be taken over or whatever it is. Right. And so those are important aspects that I've noticed over the years as a medium, that there's a group dynamic that starts to happen during a reading as well. And that can really have a lot of bearing on the outcome or the information that's shared during a session.
I genuinely believe, so the blog talk portion is going to end in like a minute and a half, but if it's cool with you, I'd like to kind of stay on for a few more minutes.
Sure, we can do that.
Book. And so just because it's getting interesting. So, but I fully believe that that the spirit people kind of have a huddle before the reading, and it's sort of like we all want to come through, but I'll support you with this, you support me with this, but the people who need to be heard, if you're standing outside somebody's office and you're all family and you're all interconnected, you're not going to usually have one person that's like, I don't have anything that's going to be, life changing, and this person over here does, and they're not going to, personality wise, they're usually not going to duke it out like that. So,
It depends. I would say it depends on the family and friend dynamic.
right.
It absolutely depends.
Yeah.
Many times people in spirit will try to support another person. They're there to support the message. And
Right.
that's why they came in to say hello. But it really depends on personality. And sometimes I have had to have my guide say, okay, move so-and-so out so we can make room for this other. Because they're not always as polite as we would like them to be.
Right.
Again, that depends on the family. If it was a family of polite people,
Well,
then everybody takes their turn. But sometimes a person's like, but this is what's important to me. And the other person's like, well, I disagree, and this is what's important to me. I'm like, literally, that has happened.
You know what though? I genuinely feel that shows the personality.
Yeah, oh, it's proof of spirit galore. People like, they're just like, that's exactly how they were here on the earth plane.
Yeah, exactly. Because that is very consistent. Not that we don't get to better levels of understanding in spirit, not that we don't continue to kind of work on ourselves one way or another, because that's something that comes through, that's the spirit people talk about.
Yes.
But I will say that if a spirit person is coming through in a reading in the way that I know I set the intention, and I'm certain you set the intention, it really is for the highest and best of everybody that is involved. I have had clients who have wanted someone to come through so they could tell them off. That has happened to me a few times over the years. And I always kind of thought that was hilarious in some ways, because it's like, you could do that without a medium. They hear you. Let's not waste our time doing that in this sacred energy and space, please. I have never had a spirit person come through, even if their personality was very strong, and they might say, if I was on the earth plane, I would have bickered about this, or I would have been upset about that. But they've never come through and swore a blue streak at somebody. And if they did, I would not translate that.
That's right. That gets beeped out.
Yes.
Censored out. But that's an interesting point, because I ask the people in spirit to come through the way they were when they were here, because that's how the client is going to remember them. And then if they have had an alteration within themselves, an enlightenment, if you will, because the angels have worked so diligently with them and they've had a chance to process life review, then the next thing usually that they'll say is, and I want to let you know, I'm sorry about such and such. Yes. And I recognize so much about that situation now. And a lot of times they'll apologize, and they'll explain how that the client will feel a different kind of energy signature from them, a different kind of vibrational frequency after that has been transcended. So it's really kind of interesting how things evolve over time with a person's individual soul, and even within the reading, there can be such an arc to what is going on in the reading for the client. And it's such a beautiful experience that you and I are part of, to be able to help people in this way. And there are days where it's readings where it's a counseling session between the people in the spirit and the client. There are days where it's just a beautiful reunion, and that's what they needed. There are all kinds of stories out there. Absolutely.
It can be very healing. It can be very uplifting. And that's the intention,
Yes.
Not to, I find that sometimes, and it always catches me unaware, because I'm in this bubble, I'm in this space of like, but sometimes somebody will come in and they'll say, I'm really nervous or I'm really scared because I don't want you to tell me that I'm going to die and when and how. And I don't want you to tell me, you know, that terrible things are going to happen to me or that I've got a curse on me and I kind of go, yeah, no, don't worry. We're
Nope.
good.
Nope. No, that's just not how we work. And I think that may be the difference, you know, in terms of a spiritualist medium, a spiritual medium versus just a, I don't know if I want to say regular medium. I don't know what the PC term would be. But if a person has that sacred mindset for the work,
Right.
that level of information of when you're going to die and all that sort of, that is not what we're trying to access. And the other thing to keep in mind as spiritualists, because we believe so strongly in free will and spiritual natural law, that death is between that individual soul and God.
Yes.
I was a hospice volunteer for a number of years, and I observed that even if the doctor said this person has 2 weeks to live, that wasn't necessarily the case. They could still be cuddling on the couch with me 9 months later, drinking as much of Ensure a day, and that was it. And you know, like, wow, sheer force of will has a lot to play in it. The dynamics, a lot of time the person in spirit is having to make decisions very quickly in terms of, well, I have quality of life. Is this going to make my family more miserable? And then some of the people are selfish. They're not thinking about that at all. Yeah. So you have varying degrees of spiritual understanding of people here on the earth plane and then the next. But you know, you and I, Celeste, that is not something people know when they come to us, that we're not going to tell them you're going to die on such and such a date. That's just not what we do. And we're here to help with the healing and to help with the communication and to bring comfort and bring ease to a situation that needed it. And it's an honor to be able to facilitate that for people and to really know that they send me messages all the time. You have changed my life. You have helped this be bearable. You have made this something that I listen to the recording of the reading over and over and over again, because I need to hear those words. And you can tell that it's something that infuses them with a great spirit to live their lives in a more joyous way, in a more comforted way, in a more divine understanding way. So that's what we're about. Yeah.
Beautifully, beautifully said. And, you know, just to slightly add on to that comment as well. Because I've had that experience where I went to someone and they forecasted someone's passing around me. And, you know, you have instances of people, because it is totally up to that soul and creator. Yes. Creator is the only one, the divine mind is the only one who knows. I like to give the example of Anita Majari, who has that fabulous book out. And she was in stage 4 cancer and she was dying in the hospice experience. And she's back and she's healthy and on tour. Maybe not on tour right now because of the pandemic, but so you truly can never.
Yeah, a person could go to the absolute brink of death and come back.
Yeah.
Well, there are bazillion stories about that. Yeah. Absolutely. And so there's a different kind of element of energy that's around a person that has had a near-death experience. Yeah. Because there's record of them here on the earth plane and in spirit, because they went so close to the veil, as it were. Yeah, absolutely. So close to it. And so that can happen. And by and large, people who have had those experiences, they recognize they want to bring a different element of understanding to their lives. Right.
Yeah. One way or another. So there is also a question about actually, there's 2 questions, but the one I don't quite understand, so I'm going to go to the other one. Are unity churches the same as spiritualist churches? And that I get that question sometimes. And I I guess I almost want to say close but no cigar. Uh, because the tenets are similar in some ways. They also believe in the power of distance prayer and healing. They also believe in meditation and going within. But uh, n- and some of the tenets are similar. You know, the principles. But uh, one of the hallmarks of spiritualism is mediumship, and that is not strictly within the unity um, mindset, as it were, or
Yeah.
tradition.
In spiritualism, we understand that there are gifts of the Spirit. The Bible talks of, and other scriptures talk about the gifts of the Spirit.
Mhm.
And that's something that we believe very strongly in, that the mediumship and healing exhibited by the great prophets of the Bible. They all tended to have spirit communication. They would talk to each other. They would be there to help and support that person as they were going through their travails. And so it's something that was very natural and was considered a gift of the Spirit. And I was just watching a documentary about Muhammad, and it's very interesting. During that time, it was a given that people would have revelations. So the gift of revelation was something that happened, in that element. And that's why it was kind of like, of course he's having revelations.
Yeah.
Of course, Jesus and the other prophets would have revelations. That is something that happens.
Yeah.
And in today's modern times, that's a disturbing element, and people have put that to the side. They kind of shunted that to the side and said, "Oh, only science will give us our truth somehow," and that's not necessarily how this all works. Because, as you know, through the years, science changes its mind. And so we have this that goes on, but these are gifts of the Spirit, and that's a distinction, I think, between unity and spiritualism, among others.
Yeah. So yeah, it's not like we're warring factions by any
Oh
means.
goodness, no. And we love unity, and it's just that the mediumship and healing are certainly important expressions of God's love.
Right. Exactly. And that's so. Yeah.
So that's why it's an element, while we have messages as part of the service and healing as part of the service.
Yeah, and I will say that in spiritualism, mediumship did not start off as being part of the Sunday service. And the reason being that mediumship, the forms of mediumship at that time, took so long.
Yeah.
There was
People
a
were more patient back then, that's for sure.
yeah, yeah. So it was something that was considered, a spiritual gift, and something that, but it would often happen in a separate building, or it would happen, in people's homes, where people would sit in circle and wait for they would sit for the philosophy, or they would sit for the individual knowledge and participation, like we do today with readings. And something I get asked about sometimes, because I had somebody who said to me somewhat recently, and I kind of giggled a little bit, because we have these ways as humans of sort of putting things in boxes, and like, this is totally good and this is totally bad. And they said, well, I was wondering about spiritualism, and because I've always gone for readings, and I would certainly go for readings, but I would never go to a seance. And I laughed, because I understood that they were saying in their mind that a seance is like people holding hands in the dark around a table, waiting for maybe physical or materialization,
Right.
or something along these lines. Or I had one lady that, this was like 10 years ago, she was in her 80s, and she hadn't been to a reading since she was in her teens, her late teens. And she was, I said my prayer and I opened my eyes and she said, I didn't, you know, I'm waiting for you to turn the lights off. And so we could get, and I was like, no, no, we leave the lights on. So they sort of had these notions based on maybe what they've seen in a movie or.
Oh yeah, movies have done a great disservice to mediumship and
Right.
spiritualism by and large. And, I guess I understand because seance has a different kind of connotation.
Right.
That it's something that here in Lilydale, that's not really, we focus on that. We're on the mental mediumship, the spiritual aspects. It's very sweet. And seance just has this other terminology of the physical phenomenon,
Right.
again, with the spook and the boo and
Right.
whatnot. So I understand your person saying that because there is a distinction of energetic difference there.
Right. Well, I understand it too, but it makes me, I had just done a family reading for them. There were 4 of us sitting around the table. And I kind of went, technically you just did.
Yeah.
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 So to have an understanding that, mediumship, if you are coming to it from the viewpoint of this is sacred work and it's, the intention is, yeah. So
So I guess the caveat here would be the takeaway for people who are looking for a medium for readings. You have to decide what you're comfortable with, and
yes.
do your research, check them out on their websites and information about them to see how they work and how you are most comfortable in terms of having a connection with spirit, and because that should be a determining factor in your choice about these things.
Yeah. And who you are drawn to and how they explain things and knowing, what your comfort level is.
Yes, yes. That's an essential part of this to feel as much as possible to be comfortable. I think there's a level of anticipation that happens during reading, and that's a really important aspect because the energy starts to build in a person for that. So that's okay, but work through a lot of the questions you have about a way a medium works is usually covered on their website. So you can look at those things and become more comfortable in reviewing it that way first.
Thank you. Okay, so we're just about at that time.
Yeah, we sure are. Sure are.
So I want to thank my special co-host today, Willa White, and you can find her at willawhite.com or off of the Lilydale Assembly website. Same with myself off of the Lilydale Assembly website or celesteelliott.com. And Willa is teaching classes. And
Yes.
I am teaching classes. Check out, do you have anything coming up like soon?
So I am the Sunday speaker for the Church of the Living Spirit. Fabulous. On Sunday, November 22nd. So I encourage people to tune in. That'll go live on the Church of the Living Spirit Facebook page. Yes. At 10:30 that morning. And so I'll be delivering the inspirational lecture that day. Fabulous. But they can certainly take a look at my Facebook page. I try to keep that updated as to events that I'm offering and part of. And certainly with my own podcast show, Wednesdays with Willa, you can take a look at things there and look at the archived videos like we mentioned earlier.
Yes, and you can catch that on Willa's YouTube page as well.
That's true.
So that's a great
Thank
thing.
you, Celeste.
Absolutely. So thank you, Willa. To check out the other Blog Talk Radio shows, check out the Lilydale Facebook page and also Blog Talk Radio, Lilydale Radio is the name of the channel. So all the shows are listed there. Like Willa mentioned, you can also listen in to the reruns, as it were, the archives. I think that's everything. So
good.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Celeste.
Thank you. Yeah. Have a great day, everybody. And we will see you here next Thursday at 10 a.m. for Wake Up to Spirit. Until then, have a good day, and I'm wishing you good vibes.